welcome everybody. Happy birthday, all of you birthday people. I know there's more than just Michael right now. And definitely happy birthday to Michael, because that's an important one.
How old are you?
8.
8! Congratulations! Are you catching up to your brother now?
He's 9.
Oh, you're going to overtake him soon.
He's only a year from now. My birthday is only a couple months from now.
Oh, brilliant.
He has to wait an entire year. I only have to wait a couple months.
And you're going to be 2 digits. You're going to be 10. That's huge.
Making me feel old.
You're young.
Well, I can tell you, you're pretty young compared to me.
You're only 40. You're young.
Doing good.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, it's lovely to have you, all 3 of you. It's lovely to see you boys. You were here at the very first Sid City Social Club, and I remember you guys. So who am I going to talk to first?
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Man, I tend to get a little starstruck. When I actually met Nichelle Nichols, I could say nothing but the phrase "thank you" over and over.
Well, she's an actual star. So where are you?
I'm in Lansdale, PA.
Okay, you've got a cat on your lap, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is Nacho. He's been visiting me online every time I've had an online session. So
oh, cool. And you've got all kinds of interesting teapot collection back there.
Across from my office, where when we were open, there was a thrift store that had the best teapot treasure finds around. So I would go in and I would every once in a while pick something, go in on my lunches, and every once in a while pick something up that just jumped out at me.
That's really cool. Do you drink tea?
Yes.
How do you drink it?
So it depends on how I'm feeling. It depends on the tea. I generally go with black teas. It's one of those things where I'm a teetotaler, so I never got to do the extravagant fine wine or craft beer, so I made up for it with the tea.
That's a really good idea. My good friend who did a quiz a few weeks ago and did a quiz again a couple of days, yesterday in fact, or the day before, I'm not quite, is also teetotal. And he also has an incredible interest in what kind of tea he drinks and comes up with new stuff every year. I
try to really cater and really just collect as many teas as I can. Well, I have a Facebook group where we get together and we buy bulk and I send them out to people so we can get the best deals. I'm in a lot of festival circuits and there's always these very creative teas that come out.
That's fantastic. I like Assam. That's my go-to tea. I think it's the kind of expensive version of the cheap of regular tea. It's really good, but I drink it with milk and sugar, like a cross between an Arab and a British person. British person definitely puts milk in, and Arabs put way too much sugar in. So I kind of do that. The taste is just too strong.
I've always liked the smell, but I could never get over the bitterness in the flavor of coffee. Though ironically, I like a tea with a fine bitter profile to it. So.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm not going to argue with you because you are definitely a connoisseur. So how are you? What's going on in your world at the moment?
I'm a therapist helping everybody else out right now.
Thank you.
I have a lot of connections in Philadelphia, so trying to keep in touch with everybody with what's going on out there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting time. So
it's a pretty interesting time is a mild way to put it. I'm aware that it's Michael's birthday, so we're going to stay as celebratory as we possibly can. But there is all sorts of stuff going on everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I keep telling my clients that the origin of the word crisis comes from the Greek word of choice. What we're finding ourselves now is a point of choice. Depending on how we choose to go, things are either going to get a lot better or they're going to get a lot worse.
I don't want to talk too much about the unpleasant things, but I do want to talk a bit about identity, because that's kind of at the root of some of the unpleasantness. I mean, I love difference. I love the different people. I love the different people in this social club. I love it's Michael's birthday. I love the idea that he sees himself as unique and interesting. His mom and his brother, and they're all different, but in the same family. So that's a microcosmic identity right there, but all individuals in it, sharing ideas and sharing philosophies, if you like. Yeah. And I always ask people I don't know, I've never met before, never found before, because I want to learn how they celebrate birthdays and marriage and how they play sports. Is that an area that interests you in terms of psychology?
That's kind of one of the things I love about my job, because it is about listening. I get to go and I get to see into so many different people's lives. I get to see the variety and just find out who they are, where they came from, where the different, and I enjoy the difference.
Where are you on the COVID spike in your town?
We are still in what's considered the red zone. We're talking about moving to the yellow zone soon, so that that's where restrictions are going to start to loosen up. Being so close to Philly and being that we have a lot of hospitals, we were an area that was hit hard.
Yeah. What do you do to amuse yourself?
I'm very eclectic, so it's hard to nail down one thing.
I love that, because I think people should change their minds every day about nearly everything.
The more that you can absorb, in life, the richer life becomes.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of grew up on that Renaissance man aesthetic of always just going out there, learning new things, science, technology, religion, spirituality, mythology. So just collecting as much as I can.
Do your clients inspire you?
A lot of them do. Yeah. Watching them wrestle with their difficulties and seeing that strength grow is very inspiring. Yeah. Instead of just like the person inspiring, it's inspired by the dynamic. Part of it is often questioning why people do things, what's life about. I'm always reading up on different theories, different philosophies, and just to get that perspective of the people, it helps me to see what's real and what's not. What's really going on in someone's life, where their struggles are, and where they find their hope and strength.
Right. Is the Freudian psychology thing debunked, or is it still alive?
So it's not necessarily debunked. This is going to probably cause a lot of arguments on the internet as soon as it's heard, but Freud was the beginning of the field. And when you're starting off, you're not going to get everything right. And Freud made a lot of mistakes, and he made a lot of understandable mistakes. Yeah. The biggest one is he didn't want to admit to a horror that honestly we don't want to admit to these days, and that's where he made a lot of mistakes. And the field has grown. I'm kind of what's considered an integrationist. It's where my ADHD really comes in handy, because I can think in two fields at once. Yes. And as much as I do a lot of CBT work, I do a lot of the mindfulness work, I work with DBT, and I work very symptom focused with very hands-on techniques. The perspective that the more psychodynamic schools give me is just as crucial in what I'm doing.
Right. Are you a Deep Space Nine fan or a Star Trek fan? Or
oh, yeah.
Where do you come into that?
Deep Space Nine was my favorite. I was actually at Rutgers when Avery Brooks...
Avery was teaching at Rutgers.
He was still considered there, but his wife was still teaching. And it was always a joke among all our friends. Is like, she's still here. We joked about it, but we never broke the boundary of slipping notes into her mailbox. We respected the boundary, but we always made that note, that joke.
Goodness, because that was kind of. So did Avery ever come back to Rutgers after? Because he was always threatening to go back and teach. I think he was a Shakespeare enthusiast, or
I think so. I don't know if he did, because immediately after graduating, I kind of went overseas and I kind of lost track. Sure. So
it was really interesting talking to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would have loved, I've got people like you, really, I could easily just talk to for hours and hours and hours. Thanks very much, my friend.
You're very lovely. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. Where are you? Are you in a big city?
We're in Virginia Beach, but we actually moved here about a year ago. I lived in New York for 39 years.
Wow.
We have family there. I actually met you once at a Garden of Eden in Brooklyn Heights.
Ah.
I did, okay. And I just said, I loved Star Trek, and that was it. I respected boundaries, like you just said.
How lovely, though. How lovely that you found us again. We found each other. Yes. You're actually really good people to talk to about identity, because you guys are clearly different in all kinds of historical ways, and yet you are kind of one person in another way. Right. So that's pretty interesting. You're a good example to the rest of the world of how we kind of need to hang out. How we need to find each other, find difference, and make it less different to us personally. Did you see each other? How did you meet?
When we lived in New York, I signed up for a sci-fi meetup because none of my friends were into science fiction, and I have always been. And I finally said, I need to meet people that like this one thing that I like that no one else seems to like in my life.
Absolutely.
He was a member of another meetup group, and meetup is just if you're looking to make friends. It's not for dating. It's literally, hey, you want to be in a group, in a room with a bunch of people that like DS9? Here's when that's going to happen. So then they sent this email that said, hey, we're doing this thing called date walking at the High Line in Manhattan. And I remember going, like, I'm going to go to this on a Saturday. Okay. I was already in Manhattan for something, and I remember thinking, well, I'm already here, let me go. I walked there, and there's a group of people, and I remember thinking, oh God, no. everybody's so much older. I don't think I'm going to stay. And then there's that voice like, you're already there. Like, are you kidding? You're going to go home now? I walked up to the front and I was standing next to him for a little bit. And I introduced myself.
It was lucky for me that most of the men there were 20, 30 years older than her.
That wasn't a lot. That was
and
God shuffling his feet.
And we start talking, and the premise of this event was, the name said it all, literally date walking. You're just walking and talking to people.
Singles walk.
Walk.
Something on the
Nice. I think what a nice idea.
I had on a Star Wars t-shirt, and then we started talking about sci-fi, and I think we talked for 2.5 hours straight, just walking and talking. And
normally during these events, there's some kind of facilitator who will move people around so everyone has a chance to talk to different people. We took off, and our conversation led
You
us.
just walked over there.
yeah.
And what made you move to Virginia Beach?
I mean, we were already ready to leave New York because it was, the commute and everything. New York, what I say about New York is, if you're in your 20s and somebody says to me, should I go to New York? I tell them, run. Go there as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And
But it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're still going to have fun.
Right, because you're going to suck up the marrow of the city.
Yeah.
But then, once you get older, you still love New York, but then New York is a great place to enjoy. It's not so easy to build things there.
That makes sense.
It just felt like the right time. We said, okay, let's go check it out. And we did, and we've been here since.
That's fantastic. And that obviously opens up the question, what kind of job propelled you to Virginia Beach? Unless you're a spy and you can't tell us.
I work for Citizenship Immigration Services. I'm an immigration officer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've talked to many of them.
Oh, wow. It's almost impossible not to be cynical in my line of work. After a certain number of years, you see lies everywhere.
Of course.
And there's all kinds of cognitive biases to explain that.
Yeah.
And
The bad ones stand out more so than the good ones, which are.
So how do you, what area of that work do you do?
I interview people who are applying for naturalization, for
Okay,
adjustment
so
of
you're right
status.
there. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because obviously I have talked to a lot of you guys, and I've actually had a pleasant experience with nearly everybody. And when I say pleasant with nearly everybody, the people I didn't have a pleasant experience were just normal experiences. I have never had a bad experience with anybody.
I'm happy to hear that.
But it's partly because I think that I was working for Paramount Studios when I first started, and that's already a pretty decent calling card. And
Star Trek, stamp.
Yes.
He's good to go.
And he's
Well,
a doctor.
that's what I get from that. That's what I love about. That's why I'm lucky. I'm lucky for that. You're a really interesting person to ask about identity, because you were just talking about cognitive things. How does that create? I mean, you're very self-aware because you just said, I know that these things, these functions are happening inside my brain at all times. But how do you know to know that? What taught you? How long have you been doing this? Is this have you been doing this for more than a decade?
Not quite a decade.
Because that's pretty self-aware, that you know that you are going to be relatively antithetical to some people as they, just because of their appearance or how they come off. You try and overcome that.
Well, as terms of art, preponderance of evidence, totality of all circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, you look for exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
This couple, they don't know each other's phone carriers, or they don't know each other's phone number.
Okay.
Well, I don't know my wife's phone number.
Yeah,
That's true.
cell phones.
We've been together 5 years.
Yes.
That's true.
Thankfully, I mean, the training prepares an officer with sufficient interviewing skills that they're not relying on one piece of evidence, that instruction how to elicit more evidence to clarify. So you say you've never been arrested, for example.
Yeah, they have a set of questions that they
But
must ask.
have police ever taken you to the police station? Oh yeah,
That gives you a clue.
They weren't,
You've been
so
charged.
if you left it at the first level of questioning, you might say, oh, this guy is lying to us, he's being deceitful. But if you ask more probing, clarifying questions, you might find, oh, well, he may give a reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
They all say the same thing, which is like, a day where we can grant someone genuine and who really wants to be here, and that's a great day for us. And they've all
You're not
said this.
kidding.
They're like, that is the day that we can grant a couple that loves each other, a day that we can grant somebody that wants to be here and loves the country. That's a great day for us.
Absolutely. I mean,
what's frustrating is the people that commit fraud, because then they are the ones that make all the other ones look
That's
bad.
more work for us. That's more
right.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I could address the crowd today, please, if anyone tries to convince you to do a sham immigration marriage, please
don't.
It's not worth it. You're going to be in that person. You're going to be, and that person's going to have power over you that you not have to surrender.
Yeah.
Please do things the correct legal way.
I couldn't agree more. And what you were describing was basically the American dream.
Right.
It's not about making millions of dollars. It's about having a shot at liberty. That's pretty great, and that is a dream worth fighting for, and it's worth taking the risk. And if you're being persecuted in some place, then I would try and get here and give my best account of myself. But that is pretty amazing. I think. What do you have? So you don't work for the government?
I'm a virtual assistant, meaning I work from home.
I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I was not born here, so I actually went through the whole immigration process.
You and me both.
Like in 2000 is when 99 is when I became citizen. So I still have you remember the oath, we did the whole entire thing. But I work right now I have a client who I'm learning a lot from, and I'm like you, and I know exactly what you meant when you said, what can I get from this person? Because it's that thing of like, what can I learn from that I don't know?
What can I share?
What insight can you give me that I didn't have before?
Absolutely.
It's like one of the best lines I ever heard is learn what you don't yet know.
I couldn't agree more.
I think part of the reason that we're so compatible is that we're both third culture kids.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, it's a person who was born in one country or one culture, but was raised in another culture.
He lived in Indonesia for 10 years.
Wow.
And I'm from Brazil. I came here. I didn't speak the language at all.
For some reason, I felt an instant draw to science fiction. It's very appealing to those of us who've gone through that fish out of water experience.
Almost 6 years ago, I went through a really bad depression, and coming out on the other side, it really valued for me the importance of mental health and taking care of your mental health.
Yeah.
And things like this, Sid City Club and this Zoom and connecting with people, I want to say thank you to you and to Mel, because it is such a service and it is so important, because mental health is not you going to see someone once a week or once a month. Mental health is the little things you do every day, and anytime anyone takes time to not just help their own mental health but to help others and just say, this is what we can do. Yeah. That is so important. So I just want to say on behalf of other fans, thank you for doing that, because
thank you.
To see things like this where we can get together and like last week we had that great song at the end. Those things I think are so important. However you think this is helping, it's helping even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you, because you all have these really, everybody's here with their full generosity, with their best foot forward. Nobody has ever done anything relatively mean or claim at the beginning to say, I don't really have anything to say. In 10 minutes, they're like, and I've got to tell you this, and I've got to tell you this. This is kind of a real group thing. Yeah, sure, Mel and I kind of started it, but all we did was push a button and everybody else is making the thing roll on. Well, thank you both. Thank you very much. I hope that I bump into you one day at some port of entry.
We hope so too.
Hello, Sid. Hello, Mel.
Hey,
Pleasure.
Brad. Hello.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because I wanted to get a suggestion from you.
I'm all up for giving people suggestions.
It's a different kind of suggestion than let me explain. I used to be involved in the New York City improv scene.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I have friends who are part of a group who are called the Red Shirts. It's an all-female Star Trek musical improv troupe.
It's a great title.
Okay. They take a suggestion from the audience.
Right.
And it's the title of a Star Trek The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine episode.
Okay.
Never broadcast, never written, never broadcast. I go to conventions time to time and I get these suggestions from Star Trek celebrities. So I'd like to ask you, what would be the title of a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode that you would have been interested in?
Okay. And Renee Auberjonois would have come up with the wittiest title you could possibly imagine right away too, without having to think about it. Oh,
okay.
I've got a title.
Good.
Happy birthday, Renee.
Oh, they'll love that.
There you go.
Okay.
And so whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Union City, New Jersey. It's right outside of Hoboken, New Jersey.
Yeah, Hoboken. I remember Hoboken from the movie Hair. There's a train to Hoboken. New Jersey got hit hard by this COVID, but it's recovering right now.
Yeah, well, New Jersey has a lot of commuters to both New York and Philadelphia.
Yes.
So the fact that it got hit hard, second only to New York, doesn't really surprise me. The city I'm in got hit hard because there's a lot of commuters to New York.
And are you still shelter-in-placey?
Yes. I work for the city of New York, and I've been working from home since they gave the directive.
You live alone?
No, I live with my wife. She
well,
got into the Zoom chat thing.
And what do you love to cook? What's your thing that you can still...
I don't cook. My wife cooks.
And what do you love to eat?
Tonight, she cooked us vegan burgers. In my experience, it tastes just like the regular burgers because they douse it in the same garbage they put on the regular burgers. So, the texture is slightly different, but the taste is near identical.
I make burgers.
Mm-hmm.
The trick is not to pack the meat if you're cooking burgers on the grill. Veg burgers, I do not know how to make. Most importantly, you do not get lean mincemeat. You get fatty mincemeat. And it's actually not the kind of fat that's bad for you. Well-bred meat. You just make sure you roll it into a kind of cylinder, but quite irregular. It's not important, but not tight. Don't mash it up by mixing in garlic salt or whatever it is you like to usually mix in. Just keep the meat as it is, and then get some saran wrap and put the meat on the saran wrap, and then roll that into a cylinder and tie up the edges roughly the size of a burger, and then keep rolling it. Get your roundness there again, not squeezing too hard to get it to compact, because tight burgers shrink on the grill and they become absolutely disgusting.
Okay.
So this is more like a Five Guys burger, and then you squidge the sides until it fills out the cylinder of saran wrap, and then you put it in the fridge, and it also gets hard, and you can just slice through the saran wrap in burger sizes, and then take the saran wrap off and put that on the grill.
How often do you cook?
I cook a lot. I cook, 3 or 4 times a week, and my wife will cook 2 or 3 times a week. The wonderful thing about YouTube, I think the best thing about the internet now is that you can get taught to do just about anything. You can get taught to make pizza dough, which you just never have dreamt of making before. And it's actually about half an hour's work, but about 8 hours waiting. And that's kind of about the same as getting a pizza from Domino's, which you didn't make and you can't really decide, and you're paying triple the price for. So there's something to be said for pottering around in the kitchen and seeing if you can come up with crazy recipes.
Well, it certainly makes me appreciate my wife, the cook, more.
Yeah, and you should.
Again, we make it work.
We make it work. Again, identity politics. You're finding ways to do something completely together, even though you're miles apart on something.
Oh, and the good news is we both like Doctor Who, and that's how we met. So.
Someone asked me last week, who is your favorite Doctor Who? And I said John Pertwee. Who is your favorite Doctor Who?
Whatever one is on the screen at the time. I started right at the beginning, Colin Baker, but then I worked backwards and forwards, and I just adore the series. I'm one of the old school guys like yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty terrific.
One of the things I wanted to, I guess I'll use the word commend you for, is the fact that before you appeared on Deep Space Nine, I had never seen a Middle Eastern British actor before. Like, there was never one on TV, and you really became a trendsetter on many levels, because now like there are various actors, but the one that comes to mind is the fact that Sacha Dhawan is now playing the Master on Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's good. That's really wonderful. I am of Arabic heritage, but I'm really African. It's quite confusing, and they're very Muslim, and it's complicated. I'm really muddled about my identities. I find them really complicated and conflicting. But thank you very much, Brad. Sid, cheerio and lovely meeting.
Thank you. It was wonderful talking to you, Sid. And thank you, Mel.
How are you, Jessica?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good too, thanks. Nice of you to ask. Whereabouts are you in the world?
I'm currently in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh my goodness, I love Dublin. I think it's a great place. How is that? How is it working out there? Is everybody? Because it's still kind of, they're being pretty cautious, aren't they, in Dublin?
Yeah, so we're all pretty closed up. We can only go like 5 kilometers, and Everything's closed.
Do you live there or are you studying there?
I've lived here for almost 7 years now.
And does that mean you work for tech?
Yeah, it does.
That's fantastic. And you enjoy it? Is it lived up to your expectations, or did you have any expectations?
Yeah, I think it's been really nice. I think the countryside is more beautiful than Dublin itself, but I think living in the country is really nice.
Do you have any aspirations to move out?
Well, the kids are just finishing up secondary school now. I have to get them through university, and then I can make real life plans, I guess.
So in a couple of years.
Yeah, in a few years. See how it goes.
Obviously, you've got how many children? You're all hanging out together?
Yeah, so I have 3 kids, and they're all finishing up secondary this year. So it's been a busy year.
They're finishing up secondary?
Yes.
Really never mean to false compliment people, but you don't seem at all old enough to have kids finishing up secondary school, right?
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
Yeah. And are they like in Dublin? Because some of them have lived nearly half of their life in Dublin.
They're enjoying it. I think it was a hard transition. I think it always is whenever you move, and I think it's a little bit of a culture shock, but I think we like it now.
Did you come out of California?
No, we came out of Oregon.
Okay.
Weather's very similar, but
Massive culture shock.
Huge difference. It's
massive. No,
yeah, it can't ever be understated just how different things can be, just even one city to another. So
absolutely. And not just like 2 American cities, but this is the Irish and the Americans have completely different lifestyles, expectations. How did you take it? How did you and are you with your partner there as well?
Yeah, no, my husband's the reason we ended up moving, because he originally had the tech job. The company transferred us over, and then I started working a few years later.
Oh, so how did you do it? How did you manage it? Because you must have been used to a whole different way of life completely.
When it comes down to it, when people say things like are exciting or not exciting, like you say to yourself, like, for the most part, my life is the same, right? And then it's just like these small peculiarities that end up.
Yeah. So I'm talking about identity today in lieu of all the ruckus that's going on in the States, which you must be watching with horror. How is it changing, adapting your identity? How is it going? Do you find your kids are assimilating? They're becoming Irish?
I don't think they are at all. My kids are really weird. I always tell people that my kids are very strange.
I love that. So, weird kids are really cool.
They're very artistic. They're very peculiar. So I don't think they're really anything. I think Portland's motto is, keep Portland weird. And I think my children really are that.
They must be really popular because that's absolutely what everyone aspires to be. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I wish. I think you have to be a little bit older for that. I think at the age they're at, I think we're still trying to figure out like who we are. And I think as they get older, I think they have friends, I would say, that are closer to my age, which is kind of sad. But, like you get those adult friends that can have like real discussions on philosophy or like literature and all that stuff that they're into that you can't have at this younger age. And so I think we're still kind of waiting for that.
It's weird that the Irish are famous for their literariness, their ability to not their unconventionality. And so it strikes me as really odd that your kids wouldn't find there must be young proto-literary interesting people who happen to be Irish at the schools that your kids have been going to. And yet they haven't found them. And they probably just, they're hanging out amongst themselves as much as anything else. And how is your husband finding it all?
He's finding it very well. I think he enjoys it. He fits in everywhere. He's one of those people that makes friends everywhere he goes. So I think it's always been easy. It doesn't matter where he is. He always has a crew of people around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a method of dealing with the virus? And do you have have you got into a routine yet?
I think now it's a little bit better. I think at first it was very, very difficult because like you went from working to working from home, and it was like, just like that. You were still doing your 40 hours a week. You're still doing like what you'd be doing, and you weren't really thinking about what was happening. It was just all happening from home now, and I can't go anywhere and I can't do anything. Like,
there's no variety anymore.
Are working on like a serial they want to create, and they've created the scripts and all that stuff.
That's
but
great.
Like actually like producing it, like actually creating the piece itself, I think is a bit of a challenge. Like just taking that time,
That's fantastic. I wish I had to help people with those sort of things, to point them in directions of how you put together little scripts and how you make sure they work and to get them rolling. There must be such a thing online now. There must be a group of like-minded youngsters who are wanting to put together serialized this, that, and the other. They can just find and get involved with and start creating their own community.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe they should start the community looking for people who are talented, who can help them become more talented.
Yeah.
That's pretty canny if you can do it. I mean, Mel and I did it, and look at us, we're all hanging out now. Well, I wish you huge luck. I don't know quite how, I think you've done something incredibly brave, and this is a major blow. Because the uncertainty, as you say, is making life really difficult. But I have a feeling that the quicker you can become comfortable with the uncertainty, the better, because I don't think this is going to change in shape for at least a year. Well, this has been really lovely talking to you, and I wish you luck with your 3 children, who are very imminently not going to be any more children, that is. Good luck with all of it. Lovely meeting you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you.
But happy birthday to you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Many happy returns of the day.
I appreciate it.
40's a big one.
It is. It's a little mellow today.
Are you normally a party person? Would you normally
No,
be having a big party? No, okay.
No.
It's kind of a silly question in this social club.
My day was spent because I hurt my back on Sunday.
And how did you do it? Playing tennis? Do you serve overarm?
Yeah.
But that will take your back out.
We had a semifinal match because I play in this league here in Georgia. It was for the winter league, and they suspended it. And they're like, okay, we're gonna resume. So we went ahead and scheduled it for yesterday. I didn't want to cancel it and postpone it again. So I just want to go ahead and play it. So I just ignored being in pain. And actually ended up being one of my best matches.
Oh my goodness! Well, that's you pushing through the pain.
Yeah.
And are you leaving town? Are you still leaving town tomorrow? Or you had to postpone that.
Yeah. We're going up to a cabin in North Georgia.
It's great.
It's got a hot tub, so
Oh, fantastic! That'll be good for your back.
Yeah.
And is that your whole family, or you?
Me and my husband.
That's great.
Yeah.
And have you been together through the whole viral situation?
Yes.
And how has it been in Georgia?
It just depends on who you are.
I mean, I read the news.
Yeah.
Georgia comes up sometimes.
Yeah. Most people don't really take it too seriously.
You kind of have to duck and dive, weave your way through.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And who does the shopping? Mostly
my husband, because he'll run groceries to his mom's house.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
I'm not a cooker. Well, my husband says I am, but I would love to have a smoker if I knew how to use it.
Do you have an outside area?
Yeah, we have a deck in the backyard.
I've been going through a massive learning how to make brisket via YouTube phase recently.
Yeah.
So I'm watching all these people firing up these smokers. And does your husband work?
He's been working from home mostly. When it first started, he got to work from home pretty much every day and just be on call. He's been going in 2 or 3 times a week now for the last couple of weeks.
Have you been furloughed, or do you not?
I am a teacher, so we are done with
got so many teachers. This is great. Yeah. And do you teach geography? I'm only taking a hint from the map on the back behind you.
Oh, the map. No, that actually comes in handy for trivia because we're big trivia players.
Oh.
This one's a little outdated though because it still has Zaire on it. So
probably has Sudan as well, without North Sudan.
Oh yeah, without South Sudan, yeah.
What do you teach, and who do you teach?
I was teaching middle school math. I applied and they said they were going to hire me for a high school math position, but then it got kind of stopped because they're kind of not really a hiring freeze, but sort of a hiring freeze. So I'm still waiting to hear.
Well, math is great. You're the first math teacher that I've come across in our group. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a particular math area that you're more excited by than others?
I like trigonometry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk me through what trigonometry is.
That has to do with all the angles and the sines, cosines, tangents, and
okay.
Comes in handy with surveying and.
That's really okay. So working out space.
Yeah.
Estimating space, estimating trajectories for rockets.
Perfect. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So 'cause I'm really excited by quantum right now. I know you've heard me say that probably if you've been on before. Does that something that amuse you?
I would be interested if I actually, took the time to look into it, but I haven't.
Yeah, you probably don't have time. But I was saying, and I'm not sure if there's a wonderful BBC show which I haven't thought to look up. I should have looked it up, but it got me excited in it. So I'm trying to sort of spread the word, and it would have to be on YouTube because you can't watch BBC in America unless it happens to have been posted on YouTube. Called Which Universe are we in? And I was just found it so compelling. I mean, it's crazy notion of parallel universes and quantum entanglement and all that kind of interesting.
It's weird because I was always really good at math, but I was terrible in physics.
Do you find it rolls off your tongue really easily, mathematics? You can write kind of quite long equations, no problem.
Well, it depends on the equation, but...
You watch Deep Space Nine, I guess, from time to time.
I was kind of late to the party, I guess. I didn't watch Star Trek at all when I was younger. I actually didn't watch sci-fi pretty much until, I guess, Stargate was my first...
Wow, controversial.
Yeah. And so Stargate was my first love as far as sci-fi goes. I didn't get into Star Trek until I saw the reboot movie in 2009. Piqued my interest about the story of Star Trek, and so I started with the original series. And this.
How did you find out about Sid City Social Club?
I think I saw it mentioned on Twitter. Somebody I followed posted
That's
it.
really cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I don't remember who it was exactly, but
I wonder, because we only have room for 200 people, and so we don't do really publicity because that's kind of crazy to ask a whole bunch of people to come who can't get in.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered how, because we started off when I think we had 32 people. It was terrific and it was jolly, and we could pretty much talk to anybody. And then the next weekend it was like, we did it just on Friday, the second time, and then it was like 52 people, and then suddenly everybody was here. So I guess Twitter works.
Yeah.
So it's a complete mystery to me how all that
Yeah.
stuff works. What do you think about identity? Because that's kind of my theme today. How do you feel about when you talk to your students and you've got issues they're dealing with? And obviously mathematics is one of the ways, I guess, it's empirical. There's no notion of subjective identities in that field. But is that question ever come up? Do you have a mixed bunch of people at the school?
I work at a school where a lot of trouble kids come to.
Yeah.
They'll get in trouble with their regular school, so they come to us. So when we have like heart-to-heart conversations, I do talk. I don't really talk about identity per se, but I try to get them to not follow the leader, because a lot of the behavioral issues is about following someone else, trying to impress someone else. I try to just be you, find out who that is. Don't just try to impress someone else on what they think. So we do talk about that a lot.
That's pretty great. And do they teach you stuff?
The students?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Without obviously naming names because you embarrass the hell out of the student, but is there like are there inspiring students, the kids that you go, whoa, they're going to do a lot of good for everybody?
Yeah, for sure. There a couple of years ago, they were trying some new thing where they wanted you to, they called it Genius Hour, but they wanted you to take over, teach a class at the end of the day about a certain subject that the kids would like, and maybe like a sports or something. And they wanted me to teach a music class, and I don't know anything about specifically hip hop. I know nothing about hip hop.
All right.
So I did it, but what I ended up doing was basically have the kids teach the class. And there was one student in particular that just took that ball and just went with it and showed how to use different music programs, how to create beats and things like that. And it was
That's
really
fantastic.
Really, yeah.
Did the kids pick it up? Did you
Oh,
do you know
yeah.
if they
Well,
took his word?
they already all knew everything about way more than I did.
I wish that kid
That
was
was just kind of like a track director.
I wish he was here with us and teaching us, like, just do this program and do this with this program, and we got this.
Right.
We could get us all singing. That would be huge. That would be really wonderful.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm going to wish you good luck.
Thank you.
I hope everything works out terrifically for you, and that you keep safe.
Right, I appreciate it.
Safe
Thank
and
you.
sound with your husband.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you've got sewing machines. You're a sewer.
I'm a hobbyist, yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Where are you?
I'm in Rhode Island.
Ah.
Yeah, I think it only takes about 45 minutes from end to end, the long way.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
Nice place. How are you dealing with all this?
Rhode Island is on phase 2 right now of reopening.
Being that's over optimistic?
I mean, I did think so at the time, although I will say that, I check the numbers every day, though there are some ups and downs. There is kind of a downward trend right now. And so I think there were fewer than 200 people in the hospital. So
wow,
that's, it's good news. I think even though there are going to be, some dissonant voices. I think that most Rhode Islanders are kind of on board with, trying to really do social distancing and take it seriously and just keep our vulnerable communities safe.
Yeah, well, if you're thinking that, it's going to happen, There's a real sense of community, and there's no, that kind of Hamptons feeling where every 10, every mile there's a new house, but they're all locked off. No one's allowed anywhere near the beach, all of that stuff. Rhode Island is just great from the point of view that, now we're social distancing, but I don't like social distancing in general. And so,
some of the beaches are open and people are taking advantage and stuff, and I think that they're just kind of limiting parking so that fewer people can go.
So what do you do with yours in terms of your hobbyist sewing? Do you make costumes? Because we've got some people here who make wonderful costumes.
I'm not a cosplayer. I like to quilt. I make clothing and stuff, but not costumes. I've never cosplayed at a convention before, and it's kind of like someday I will, but time, resources. I actually had a question.
I'm so glad you stopped me.
So there's a little bit of a preamble to the question.
As long as you like.
I have sort of like a split life. So in my professional life, I'm an animator, which takes up a lot of time. It's a lot of passion. It's a lot of labor. In my main hobby is that I'm a mixed martial arts fighter.
Wow. Okay.
I was at a fight with one of my friends, very direct in her questioning, and she had asked me at one point, since we're talking about identity, she's like, do you think of yourself more of an artist or more of a fighter? And then she said, which one would hurt more if it was taken away from you? I didn't have an answer for her at that time either, because, it was inconceivable.
Yeah.
But now I only have my job.
Yeah. That's such an unfair question.
I know a lot of people, that I train with where fighting is the main thing that defines them and defines their identity. They think of themselves like, I'm a fighter, and everything else that I do is ancillary, and it's extra.
Yeah.
And I am wondering, because I have a job, I have a career and dreams that aren't related to, punching people in the face. I wonder how people struggle when their main passion is something that they can't do. And so I'm wondering, for you, you're an actor, and that requires you to be around other people. And you're saying, in other social club episodes that, you may not act for a year. How does it affect you when, how much does acting define you as a person? And, how do you find yourself going forward when that isn't possible to do?
That's a really, really good question. I think your friend was really unfair that she asked, which one would you have to give up if you did? Remember when we were kids and people would say, so who would you get rid of, your mum or your dad? It's like, what kind of question is that? I'm not getting rid of any one of those two. There's not a zero-sum game. And I'm always kind of hopeful that something will kick in just for financial reasons, to be honest. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason, because it gets very difficult. So that's the only depressing side of it, to be honest. I find this kind of thing wonderful. I find watching people forced into change, forced into a different way of life. Obviously, there are people who are ill. I can't include them in this. And obviously, there are people who are having really destructive time in a kind of domestic situation. In general, as a society, I'm enjoying the fact that we're being squeezed into a different shape. I think it's going to be good for us in the long run, even if it's terrible now. The humanity of this club alone. If I was more emotional, I could weep, I do that kind of for the emotion thing for a living, so I kind of leave it at work. And but I do think that I'm going to learn something coming out of all this, not just from you and the 60 other people in this room right now, just from everybody. And so I don't get upset. I don't lose hope. I look for things that excite me, look for things that try and keep me firing on new cylinders. So especially things like you. You've got so many different things that you like to do that you take seriously.
Mm-hmm. You can't be casual about fighting. It's not possible.
No.
I'm going to show up to practice maybe once a week. I don't know, half an hour a day.
Yeah, we'll see how I get on.
I tell you what, if anybody needs a good motivation to work out, sign up for a fight and know that there's somebody in the next town over who wants to rip your head off, and you'll work out.
But you're the first fighter I've ever met and talked to.
Ever?
Ever. I've never talked to a fighter. I mean, I've talked to people who do it, not for sport.
It also might be possible that you've met a bunch that just didn't tell you.
That would be true. That's absolutely true. And you know what? If I'd met you in another circumstance, you might not have told me either.
But I think a lot of folks are just, generally pretty chill, whether they're jiu-jitsu practitioners or, whether they do Muay Thai or something like that. It's a pretty diverse group of people. I've met a lot of men actually that I probably would never become friends with otherwise. Like a very crunchy, liberal, gay woman. I don't really have a lot of opportunity to hang out with a bunch of macho men, but.
I guess you're right. You know what? There is something about that. Certainly the Eastern martial arts are very beautiful to watch. I mean, when somebody is disciplined and precise, in a weird way, aggressive but controlled, if that makes sense. It's not this kind of flailing around, which I see. I think of boxing as more of kind of a flaily kind of thing. But martial arts, when it's done well with musical precision, is pretty amazing because the inventiveness and the speed of reaction is, but to a form. So you don't just make it up.
Yeah.
It's sort of always a form, and you just have to think which form is going to work at what point, and that's quite beautiful when that sort of expertise is on display.
I mean, I think one of my favorite fighting experiences was actually was able to be one of the first female fighters to do a sanctioned Muay Thai fight in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Which was I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. The promoters who put on the show were really, really passionate about traditional Muay Thai kickboxing, and so they had everything set up so that the ring was like really, really well lit, and they had like traditional music playing, and so you couldn't really hear the crowd so much, which was really nice. And because the ring was lit up but nothing else was, it was kind of like just
concentrate on this place.
Yeah, it was just me and the other fighter in the ring, and we had a fantastic time. Really just kind of like a nice kind of moment of like fellowship in a way.
Yeah, well, I think that's spectacular. I mean, I'm loving the fact that kind of variety truly makes you an individual. And I think most of the people in this social club are individuals. I mean, there really doesn't seem to be a kind of heterogeneity among them. With that, I think I'm going to wish everybody good night. And it was such a pleasure talking to you.
Same. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I think we should take a very brief second, and we don't have to sing a song, but we just got to wish Mel a happy birthday because it's in 50 minutes in this country. Happy birthday, Mel.
Happy birthday,
Mel.
Birthday, Mel.
Happy birthday, Mel.
Happy birthday, Michael. Good to see you.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, Michael.
Años and feliz aniversario, Mel.
Yeah.
Everybody, appreciate it.
Good night, everybody. Until next time. Stay safe. Be happy.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.